You're listening to Straight to the Point, Uncut. Hello, my name is Ciaran Gibbons and welcome to Straight to the Point, Uncut, my new podcast. This is a little bit of an introduction for people who perhaps don't know me. A little bit about the podcast and what my plans are for the future. This podcast is something I've been planning for quite a long time. I think I actually thought about doing a podcast about 3 years ago. I was inspired a little bit by a couple of friends, Di Owen and James Lilly, who run a podcast called Turn the Lights Out, which is a boxing and MMA podcast, which I've appeared on a couple of times and I've helped out with them a few times. I did plan to like I said, do a podcast about 3 years ago, but something else came up, another business opportunity or work opportunity, so I put the podcast on the back burner. But now, during this lockdown period, I guess to a certain extent, I'm jumping on the bandwagon the same as everyone else and trying to put a podcast together. Most people, if you know me, if you don't know me personally, you probably know me through boxing. However, this is not a boxing podcast. This is going to be a podcast about any subject, whether it be sports other than boxing, whether it be politics, world affairs, showbiz, any interesting story, current affairs, military stories. I got a few veterans who I'm desperate to get on the show, got really good stories to tell. They are the type of stories I want on this podcast, and I'm hoping the way I plan to run it is, whereas in a lot of podcasts and life story style podcasts, you may take 20 minutes or half hour to get to the main part of the story, whereas with this podcast, with the name Straight to the Point Uncut, we're going to get straight to the main point of the story. So rather than having a slow build up, it's going to be straight to the point, straight to the really interesting bits. And that's the plan moving forward. We're on Twitter. Our Twitter name, if you want to follow us, is @STTP or lowercase uncut. That's @STTP uncut. We also will have a Facebook page very soon when I set it up. The podcast is going to be available to view and to listen to on YouTube. There's also going to be a download version on all the usual podcast platforms. So please subscribe and like and follow. And if anyone has got any interesting stories that they feel need to be told, then please get in contact. I'm on Twitter @CiaranGibbons1. Please get in contact with me. If you think you've got a story that needs to be told, something interesting, something that's not out there already. And I've got a first guest lined up. I got Di Owen, who I just mentioned, who partly inspired me to do this podcast. He's my first guest, and he's going to be speaking about appearing on the X Factor, which is always something I've been interested in, because the way that they show you the X Factor on television isn't necessarily the reality behind the scenes. So my first edition of Straight to the Point Uncut is going to be X Factor, the reality, with David Owen, who did apply to go on the X Factor. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Di about it. Di's a great character, a great speaker, so it's going to be really interesting to find out the reality of appearing on the X Factor. You're listening to Straight to the Point, Uncut.